This is Jai with Salt Spring Life, and I'm here today with Guy and Morella from the Carnivorous Plant Store. I'm wondering if we can start off just hearing a little bit about what exactly a carnivorous plant is.
The main function of a carnivorous plant is one that produces deliberately structures that attract, retain, and use insects or animals as a fertilizer for plant growth. Every form, every color, every marking pretty much is an advertisement to an insect or something else that is trying to lure that insect or play a role in the ecology of its habitat. Example of our Sarracenia North American pitcher plants, and the way that they will strategize to capture insects is Sarracenia minor here, and I did some science experiments in my undergraduate on Sarracenia minor, and it takes a lot of physiological work to produce these structures. So there's all of these weird white little things going back down the wall of the pitcher of Sarracenia minor, but it doesn't go down here. It's just concentrated up here. What's the deal with that? There's this dark pigment on the lid. Well, it's been theorized for a long time that Sarracenia minor creates a false exit. So it produces nectar around this lip here, which is called the peristome. An insect will come onto the peristome, it'll have some of that nectar, and it probably gets the insect a little bit high. And when the insect is now taken this narcotic nectar and it stares into the back of the pitcher, and the light comes through those light windows, those fenestrations, they might think that the back of the pitcher is actually the exit. And see how darkly pigmented the lid is? So this is actually called a false exit light trap. These pitcher plants have in midsummer is that they will catch so many wasps and so many insects that they will actually start to putrefy. They'll get these brown spots on them and they won't be able to absorb the nutrients anymore. That's just the beginning of putrefaction. But what happens with the chorus frogs is the chorus frogs live in the pitchers. They can sort of just use it as a home essentially, and what they'll do is that they will eat some of the captured insect prey, and that will prevent the putrefaction of the pitcher. So it will mitigate all of the fertilizer flux. In return, though, the frog will pee and poo back into the pitcher, which is a fertilizer for the plant.
Wow.
So the frog gets the benefit of the shelter, the protection, the water, and the food from the pitcher, but in return, the pitcher plant actually gets a more available source of nitrogen and the other things that the insects contain.
What a good deal for everybody.
Yeah, totally. And we get a cool little frog living in our greenhouse. Well, quite a few of them. The nectar is not a subtle thing. You can see on some of these plants just how sticky with nectar the pitchers are. And so that's definitely, there's a lot of customers will be concerned when they buy plants like, hey, will my Sarracenia or my carnivorous plant need to be fed? There's all of these things. There's olfactory, there's visual strategies that they're using to catch insects. So they're like readily just sucking them in through all kinds of different, there's downward pointing hairs, there's waxy zones in the pitchers. So there's all kinds of strategies these plants are using to effectively catch insects. So generally, you don't have to worry about feeding your carnivorous plants.
And will they grow without eating animals?
Good question. They are fundamentally a plant.
Okay.
So that's so important to keep in mind. Their baseline food production is still photosynthesis. It's still carbohydrates through photosynthesis. But if you think about it, this leaf shape, all these curves, being really tall and thin, it's a very poor solar panel. Having a nice flat leaf, typically, like most plants have, is a way more efficient way of producing sugars through photosynthesis. So although the carnivorous plants are still primarily photosynthesizing, their structures are a compromise between photosynthesizing and being able to capture prey.
Gotcha.
Now that we're talking about sundews and easy to care plants, our Cape sundew, this is from the Cape of South Africa, it's pretty much super hard to kill. It will always catch fruit flies. It will always catch fungus gnats. You put it on your windowsill, It will handle low light, it'll handle high light, hot, cold, it will go dormant. If you don't want it to go dormant, it can grow like a tropical. It's our pretty much go-to plant for new beginners because it does all the things that people that are just getting into plants want. It's really hard to kill and it's super adaptable.
Awesome.
Most carnivorous plants actually have a passive mechanism, right? So like our Sarracenia, it's got a pitcher, but a wasp flies in here and it's like it hits a waxy zone and it falls in. But it's not like the lid closes or it's, sucks it in or anything. It's kind of using gravity and slippery surfaces and lures to function. Whereas the Venus flytrap is so famous for its rapid movement. And that is facilitated by these trigger hairs. I don't know if it's really tough to see, but there's these on that trap, they're a little bit darker pigmented, and an insect needs to kind of crawl onto the trap and trigger those hairs, so move back and forth, and then it's just a very rapid capture movement. But you see, even there, it's not fully closed, and that's quite deliberate. There needs to be more struggle within that trap for another couple of minutes, stimulating those hairs further for that trap to actually fully seal and start digestion. Because raindrops, leaf, detritus, stuff like that can fall on a trap, trigger it to close, and it's a lot of energy to go into the full digestion mechanism. So that's a little kind of like checkpoint there. Like, are you a real insect, or are you just a really big raindrop or a piece of hail or a leaf? And if you are, you're not going to further stimulate me, and I'm going to open back up.